Tell them what to expect. Notifying students and families about the follow-up interview. This mini training is brought to you by the Post-School Outcomes team at the University of Oregon on behalf of the Oregon Department of Education. The purpose of this mini training is to provide strategies to inform students and families about the follow-up interview. Getting former students or their designee to answer the PSO follow-up interview can be a challenge. Telling students and their families about the interview before it happens is one way to increase the chances that they'll answer the phone when you call. That is, giving them pre-notification. Think about it. You're in the middle of doing something. Maybe you're grocery shopping on your way home from work, or you're trying to finish mowing the yard. Maybe it's your only afternoon off, and suddenly your phone rings. How likely are you to stop and answer the phone when you're busy doing something else? Maybe you decide to answer because it could be important. And after saying hello, you hear, "Hello, this is Mrs. Johnson from the ABC School District. I want to talk to you about what you've been doing since leaving high school." How likely are you to continue that call? Especially if that call comes from an unknown ID or an unknown caller. Most of us don't answer those calls these days. Telling students and families about the follow-up interview in advance of calling them increases the response rate, it improves data quality, and it establishes legitimacy and trust. So let's talk about a few strategies. So several years ago, there was some research conducted with students and families in order to identify what are the factors that would motivate students to respond to the interview. These motivations included being told in advance, that is, being given pre-notification that they're going to be conducted, making sure that students and families are familiar with the questions they're being asked and how the data will be used, also helping to make sure that students understand they're not being interviewed for a job. That's the context in which they knew the word interview. So helping them to understand that you're attempting to gather information from them. Also incentivizing them to participate in the follow-up interview and showing interest when talking to them were some of the highly rated motivation strategies. So let's take a closer look. In terms of pre-notification, students suggested a 1 to 2 week notice. They wanted a formal letter that was personalized and signed that explained what the purpose of the interview was, who would be conducting it, how long it would take. They also recommended a hand-dressed white envelope as opposed to an envelope with one of the little plastic seals windows, because that signaled a bill or something bad news is how they described it. And they also wanted that pre-notification to include reminders, things like college recruiters give. So a reminder of other services that might be available, a reminder that if they are still eligible to return to school, they can do that. With regard to familiarity, students wanted to know what the questions they were. They wanted to be comfortable with the person that was doing the interview, preferably somebody they liked while they were in school, like a former teacher. It can also be anyone from the school staff who talks to them. The idea being that they wanted someone who they trusted and someone that they had a good relationship with. They wanted to make sure that they knew why the questions were being asked and how they were going to be used. And they wanted to make sure it was legit, meaning that it wasn't a scam. You know, students are savvy and they want to know that they're not being taken advantage of. They've been told that that's a possibility, not to give out personal information, and yet here is potentially a stranger calling them and asking them very personal information. So pre-notification helps them to know, again, that the interview is going to be conducted, who will be conducting it, how the information is going to be used. And so that helps them to understand it's not a scam, that it is legitimate. In terms of incentives, one of the things that personally surprised me was students wanted to know that the information they were giving would help other students like themselves. They were very altruistic. Once they understood how the information was going to be used to improve programs, make school better, they were much more willing to participate in the interviews. For some students, it might require that they be incentivized financially to participate. When we asked students how much money would it take to get them to participate in the interview, they said $5. They were not looking to get rich off of the interview. Other suggestions included gift certificates to local restaurants, discount cards, information about jobs and colleges. So not all of the incentives that students recommended were fiscally based or financially based. And then interesting. So students wanted the person making the phone call to be enthusiastic about the information, to be interested in the answers that the student had, and to convey a non-judgmental tone, which if you think about it, these are all good recommendations for anyone doing an interview. They wanted the interview to not sound as if they were being read a script and something mechanical. All right, so an additional strategy is to use the PSO postcard. It's available on the website, transitionoregon.org. You can download it, print off as many as you need. You can also contact us here at the University of Oregon, and we may have a bundle that we can send to you. Use the postcard to tell the student about the follow-up interview. Ask the student to self-address the postcards at their last IEP meeting, where you talk about the importance of the interview. And then a year later, mail the card to the former student prior to the start of data collection. It helps them to remember, oh yes, we talked about this, and I know that someone's going to be calling me. Another strategy is to send home information to the student and to the family. Informational flyers. We have created 3 very brief one-page flyers, 2 for students and 1 for parents. We noticed in last year's data collection that several parents and grandparents refused the survey. So the one-page flyer describes how they can participate in the interview, why it's important, again, how the information is going to be used. And that flyer was created in collaboration with Fact Oregon. You can download these flyers from our website as well. Lastly, conduct an exit interview. This is an excellent opportunity to share a copy of the interview questions. I would not give them a copy of the full interview because that has information on it that they don't need, but just a copy of the questions. Share the flyers with the students and the families. Again, explain the purpose of the interview, how the information can be used to improve programs. Another strategy is to teach students to participate in the follow-up interview. You're probably already doing mock interviews for jobs. Simulate the follow-up interview as well. Teach the vocabulary of the interview. Some of the questions may be a little difficult for some students, especially around the section that asks about assistance that's received. They may not know what TANF is. They may not know what a brokerage is. So it's an opportunity to talk to them about those adult services. It's also an opportunity to practice self-advocacy skills with students. as if you're reading off the interview questions and they don't know how to answer that question. It's an opportunity to stop and teach them how to say, I don't know what you're asking me. Would you repeat that, please? For additional information or technical assistance, please reach out to any of us. We're here to help, and we look forward to having a great data collection season.